gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for waking us up again and for keeping us safe this far in this week as we've been working. And Lord, as we meet this morning in peace that you've afforded us, I ask that you help us to remember that this is a blessing and a precious privilege and opportunity to be able to study these things that so few in the world know. I ask, Lord, that you'll pour out your Spirit upon us and convict us of sins that we have not confessed, and righteousness, the righteousness of Christ, and of judgment that is taking place in the heavenly sanctuary above. Lord, we ask for the outpouring of your Spirit in accordance with your word, that we might be able to understand these things and that they might have an effect upon our souls. We thank you, Lord, for your blessings and for your presence. In Jesus' name, amen.
And I haven't read the article from the brother in Africa that you guys started through yesterday, so I don't want to keep going through that. I haven't even looked at it, so I don't know what the claims were. Did everyone else read it? Okay, so without defining or describing it, is it good, bad, or ugly? Yes.
It is.
There was an area he doesn't understand, but
Well, no, I think,
the
yes.
chronology.
I understand his logic.
You understand his logic, but you're not sure that you agree with it?
I'm not.
Well, there was a section.
I don't know yet.
Okay, well, maybe, Lord willing, we'll get back to that. So you went through Tyler's article on Sunday?
Yeah.
And was it flawless? Someone made that claim. You don't want to say because he's in the room? So I'm not even remember where we were, let alone what his article was. What was his article saying? Someone want to summarize it? Perhaps Tyler? What was the premise of your article? Or Michelle, you want to try?
The premise was that the argument or the discussion we're having is, do we see Daniel at midnight giving his prediction or at the midnight cry in Daniel chapter 2? And I was laying out the idea that it was at the midnight cry, and some of the proofs for that were Esther, Abigail, and Joseph. I laid out in the article, briefly summarized 3 different lines that sort of contribute all the same structure to Daniel. And so if they're all the same structure, then Daniel should follow that same structure. And in these, they are all giving their predictions, or they're all having their standing before the king, I don't know the best way to say it, at the midnight cry, as opposed to midnight.
But it's not denying that there's a prediction at midnight.
No, it's just adding the thought that you can see more than one prediction at different places depending on the context.
Okay. So where are we at in our study? What have we left open besides 100 different things?
With, oh, never mind, you don't want to. I was going to say, if that email, the claims that are made in that email are, it's much different than the way we've understood it, but I don't know if it's much different, but it definitely starts differently. But
What does that mean?
instead of starting at 9/11 with the dream, with the king getting a dream, Nebuchadnezzar would be at 1989 getting a dream. The 4 magicians would be the 4th generation, and he outlines several points. So I mean, it is.
Oh, so he's agreeing with what the Alabama brethren came up with?
Oh, I don't know what they came up with.
Not, and it doesn't seem like in the same way.
Oh, yeah, and
He's talking about
not
Daniel
the same
too.
way, but
He says it's the 4 generations, but not in the way that they're
No.
lining it up as
yeah.
all the way to the close of probation.
But he doesn't necessarily
Disagree.
disagree with that. I don't know that they might be going hand in hand. The only difference is that, I mean, there's several differences because of the way that he starts the story. but you still have Daniel coming in and giving the interpretation of this dream right in the midnight cry area, just how we understand it.
Yeah.
But getting to that point is different.
I think
And then the results are a little bit different.
He's looking at it from a different scale.
Yeah, he's looking at it from different
Yeah.
perspectives. I think
Yeah.
in the
Scale,
in, you
she
know-
said.
Yeah,
Is
scale.
that, is that
different.
right? It's like a different level.
Well,
Bigger
He's
fra-
seeing it
bigger
as the
fractal.
broader
Yeah,
picture
like
that
that.
he's seeing the what did he say? It's like the bigger picture that's showing the whole history
Yeah.
really up through the Sunday law.
So you recorded it, but you haven't released it because you realized that we hadn't previewed it in advance?
Yeah, I
But everyone in here's
Yes.
read it after the fact.
Yeah.
Or most of you, if you had time, right?
I haven't read it through the end.
I haven't finished it.
We read it to that pretty close.
We only got to like page 2 or 3.
No, I figured you would have read it on your own
No,
afterwards.
6. You got
Or,
six.
Yeah, there's 2 points. He talks about 2 points. The first one we finished, and for me, the spirit. Let's see.
What was his first point?
That in the beginning of, in the time of the end, we have a tree.
We have a tree,
3 years. We have this.
3.
Yeah, we have 3 years. Progressive trees, for example, 1798, and then 1799 with the Pope was dead, and then 1800, where the college starts again of Catholicism, or some people mark between 1797 to 1799. Anyways, it's 3 years, and then he starts to show you another 3 years in other lines. He starts saying that to mark something. So what?
The thing is, he said the time of the end is a period of time,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
after that period of time, God reveals an increase in knowledge.
But primarily because he wants to show that Daniel 1, Daniel 2, and Daniel 3 they all have the 3 angels' message. We see this in Daniel 3, for example, because you have the Sunday law, which is the third angel's message, but also you have the image of the beast being formed, so you can see other messages there. And he didn't tell us, but it looks like you have also this in the Daniel chapter 1, all the 3 messages, all the line. So he wants us to show that this Daniel 2 also has the whole line, starting from time of the end to the Sunday law. Of course, we can zoom in and look more close to midnight cry and midnight, but he was pointing out that the Daniel 2 starts from time of the end, and to show that he started pointing out, proving that at the time of the end you have 3 years. The way he proved it was pretty precise.
Okay, we've already, not in depth, but we've already put that in place a long time ago when we started dealing with the 2520. We didn't make a big deal out of it. We've seen that there was a period of time at the time of the end, and as I remember it, we never got to finalize that, but I began to at least think, and we've mentioned it, that we used Moses as the time of the end, but perhaps it's the birth of Aaron and the birth of Moses, and this same thing with John the Baptist and Christ, that both those births, though different, are representing time then. Arian?
His first point was that he wanted to prove what we do is Daniel 3, for example, is focusing on the 11th hour workers, but it is introduced by the main point is the 11th hour workers,
Fire furnace.
but there is a history. Sorry.
The main point is the fiery furnace.
Yeah,
And there's a
but
history
there is a history before it which introduces it, like midnight cry but it's not the main focus. And what he says is Daniel 2, the main focus is midnight cry, but it is or starting at 9/11, maybe 9/11 to midnight cry. But he says it's not the main focus, but it starts in 1989, and then he starts to prove that by the 3 years, by the time of the end, the Nebuchadnezzar get this dream in his second year, I think.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was where the
Yeah,
chronology was
and
off.
and he went through some chronology, and he shows that it's after a period of 3 years, and that it's
The 3 years of of Daniel being tested.
Yeah.
oh yeah, the 3 years of Daniel being tested. That was his point. And
That
and then
one.
knowledge is and then knowledge increases. So he compares it with the time of the end. We see that this was the first vision Daniel was given, and in Daniel 10 it was the last vision that was given to Daniel. That was in the 3rd year of Cyrus, which is the time of the end. So he says the first or the last one is in the time of the end. So he says the beginning should also be in the time of the end. That was his logic. Or the first vision and the last vision. So all the visions are given to Daniel at the time of the end. That all these.
He also said that in 1992, you start understanding the time of the end.
Daniel 11.
No, Daniel 11. I don't remember what he said, but he marks in our line also that we have 3 years in the time of the end,
Progressive understanding.
from 1989 to 1992.
1989, 1990, 1991.
Yeah, and then 1992
in
he understands.
1992, there's this increase of knowledge of this history that's taking place. I don't know exactly what he was saying about that point, but I think what's fundamental to understand about his point is that though the time of the end is shown by these 3, he's viewing those 3 as more of just the point in time, the time of the end. So he's seeing these events showing the time of the end, but the significant factor is that they're marked by a number 3. So when you go into Daniel's timeline and he's taken captive, then there is a sequence of 3 years, Daniel's training in the Babylonian courts, that leads up to a point where Nebuchadnezzar is given his dream, which would be, according to how he's understanding this, increase of knowledge. So that whole period of time is just marking, in one sense, symbolically the time of the end. Thus, Nebuchadnezzar's dream is given at the
So
time of the
in
end.
Daniel 1, when he's tested and found 10 times smarter, that's not the increase of knowledge too?
That would
He-
actually be to his point.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He doesn't include that?
He didn't say anything about that, but I think that would, at least add to that point. If there is an argument against it, Theodore brought it up yesterday, and the argument against it, maybe not against it, but
Chronology?
Yeah, it is chronology. The 2 7-year periods that we've already established have a 3 years at the beginning and the end of it. Right, so you have 3 years leading up to Daniel's captivity, and then you have 3 years leading to the release from the fall of Babylon. So at the beginning and end of these 7-year periods. So what he's doing is Blessing is seeing the 3 years not preceding Daniel's captivity, but he's seeing the first 3 years after Daniel's taken captive. So we already have associated the ones preceding, the 3 years preceding Daniel's captivity as the time of the end, and the other ones at the end also as the time of the end, but we haven't really seen the events following the captivity, the 3 years of Daniel in captivity while he's being trained. We haven't seen that as the time of the end. So he's seeing that a little differently than us, and he has a little bit different of a chronological understanding. However, it is the way that most of us have understood it the whole time until Brother Theodore has shown different chronology. So
He also ties in Cyrus, when he actually rules over the throne of David.
Right.
that was a
That
really
was
cool
nice.
point, and
That
I
was
think
nice.
you should hear that point.
No, you go ahead. I think you explained better than I would.
Okay, so he has a really nice point. It's just a quick little paragraph. It's just.
Does everyone have one of those
Yeah.
except me? Do you have any more? No?
I don't think.
Thank you. What page are you on? Who didn't put page numbers on it?
It's not page
No,
number.
that's no page number.
Who printed it?
It's an email.
Technically, I printed it.
Put page numbers on it.
Already put.
It's an email.
Yeah, but when you print it, you can still figure
yeah.
out how to put page numbers on what you're printing.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
No, I
What's the point you're looking for, Cyrus?
I think it's the last paragraph of page 2. And this is just a small point. He brings out a statement that we're familiar with from Patriarchs and Prophets. In fact, we used this when we've broken down Daniel chapter 2. But he just connects something that I thought was really nice, and it's a nice clear connection. So the last paragraph, it says, in the classes. It says, in the classes, there has been much labor in trying to prove Daniel as standing at the time of the end when the vision of chapters 10 through 12 was given, which I believe is correct. The vision was given in the 3rd year of Cyrus, which, if I am not mistaken, was his 1st year of sole rule, not in the realm of the Persians, but as king on the throne of the Lord, which had been taken from Zedekiah and given to Babylon, and now was given to the Medes and Persians. Notice these words from the, okay, so that's it. And then he quotes this statement from the appendix, which we've quoted, that talks about the king being, or the kingdom, or the crown being passed successively from kingdom to kingdom. And the interesting point is this: when we've said in Daniel chapter 10, it doesn't say the 3rd year of his reign, it just says the 3rd year, and we've thought, well, that's just the 3rd year from the fall of Babylon. But he makes this connection that it's the 3rd year since the Medo-Persians were sitting on the throne of the Lord. So when Cyrus ascends, and it's his 1st year, which is the 3rd year since they have the throne of the Lord, this crown's been passed to them. Now it's his 1st year that he has sole reign over the throne of the Lord. He has that
The crown.
unlimited dominion upon the earth, or whatever. He's the one holding the diadem, or wearing the diadem, that's been passed from Zedekiah. So that's just an interesting point that he brings out that we hadn't connected before, but it seems to fit really nicely.
So what's your problem with chronology that he has, Theodore?
It's just, I was just saying that at the beginning, the 270 years things, so from the fall of Assyria to the captivity of Daniel, and then from the fall of Babylon to the release. There's, those to me are tied together. He was trying to deal with the 3-year test, but also the chronology doesn't work out. You know, like he noticed there's a discrepancy in the chronology in the way he was trying to do it as well. So we need to lay that out more clearly, the 3-year test, where it lies with the vision of
The
Daniel
3-year
2.
test of Daniel 1.
Yeah, where it lies before Daniel 2, because it has to come before. And so that's, people just look at it very simplistically, and they actually treating it as if it's 2 years instead of 3.
Okay, so go ahead.
So there's one point is Blessing is not dogmatic about any of his understanding. He's very open.
No.
You can see
He always
by
is.
by his writing. You can see that, you know, he's like, the dates, whether there be this or that, that's not my point. His main point is that you see a 1, 2, 3, and then you see a revelation from God. And those 1, 2, 3, and that revelation from God are marking the time of the end.
Yeah.
So he's seeing that whole sequence of events as the time of the end. So even with, as we worked out Theodore's yesterday, and we were entertaining the 2 different ideas, even with that, it doesn't change the understanding that he's putting forward, at least from that perspective.
Okay, so the question is what you did yesterday, even though it's unresolved by any of us, is it worthwhile to go ahead and put it on the web? Okay, then we can do it, and we can just, today we're commenting on it, but we'll stop on it until we got time to look at it, and then Lord willing, we'll come back to it, Brother Bud.
I was just gonna say that you can easily see what his points he's trying to make, because on the first page, about the 2nd paragraph down until the next page, he gives 9 points. So it's pretty simple to see
That's his
which
summary.
direction it's
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. He did a really good job of saying, this is what I want to tell you, and then he goes through and tries to prove each of these assertions that he makes. So he makes 9 points, and it allows you to draw his line just the way he understands it, and then you can say, whoa, you're putting that at a completely different spot than us, and then he goes, this is why, later, and he tells you his proof. So that's really nice. If you wanted to look over this and see if there's anything you see right off the bat, you can just see his line. It's pretty clear how he's marking it.
Okay, let's come back to this. And go ahead and put it on the web so when we come back to it, the initial discussion is in place. So where are we? There's so many balls in the air, and we're running out of time in this trimester to bring any of them to a conclusion. I would, anyone want to put their 2 cents in on where we should come back into this before I throw something completely out of that we haven't discussed yet? That's on my mind. Sister Michelle.
I have 2 questions.
2 questions.
Okay. One of my questions is when we were talking about.
Well, let me say one thing.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
okay.
I don't know if you two should be sitting there, okay? Because a lot of people told me they can't hear you at all. Now, it might be your soft voice, but my response to him is that you are sitting right in front of a pillar. The microphone's up there. I don't know if you wouldn't think that was blocking it, but you either have to raise your voice when you're talking or maybe get out here where everyone else is. It was you, they say, more than one person. It's Tanya, they have a really hard time hearing.
It's the distance and it's being next to a wall.
Yeah.
Distance and next to a wall, okay.
It's gonna bounce away from the wall, right?
That's your quiet voice.
All right, so I just didn't want to forget that. I'm sorry, go ahead, Sister Michelle. Start all over again. 2 questions.
So 2 questions. Based on things that you put up on the board several weeks ago, just how they connect to a line, or if they connect to a line. One of them being Satan appearing as an angel of light and then personating Christ. And I just wasn't sure on how we got to putting it at midnight cry to Son of Law. Continuing. And the same type of question with Jesus getting arrested at midnight. But for Jesus getting arrested at midnight, I'm wondering where you would put what precedes it. So Gethsemane, Passover, those are my 2 questions.
Well, Passover doesn't precede it,
Him getting arrested?
right?
Eating the Passover.
Eating the Passover supper, sorry, that's what I mean. The Last Supper.
So what is your dilemma?
Where you would put that? How would you put that on?
I don't know how you'd put it, but to me Gethsemane is a binding off, and at the rest at midnight, I have assumed it's a repeat and enlarge. But I'm not.
On a complete line, because in my mind I was.
Yeah, I think maybe you can put it on a complete line at a different level.
Yeah.
But in terms of marking midnight as
When he gets
a waymark and what happens there, I think it can be addressed as its own little period of time and illustration. I mean, how many bindings off are there in the Christ line, you know?
A lot.
And I only see like 2 or 3 of you have sent in your binding offs to me. I'm the one that's supposed to be gathering them. But you probably all have them done. You just haven't got them put together where you can email them, right?
I sent mine to Brittany.
No, well, that was I probably led you to say that because I brought that up once, not knowing myself. But I guess initially I said, send them to me. So resend it to me. And the first one was your first question.
On when we were looking at Satan appearing as an angel of light between midnight and midnight cry, and then personating, that's from my translation, Christ after the Sunday law.
Yes?
Just, I kind of would like a line to kind of anchor them, or some logic on how you would connect that to like a bigger,
Connect it to a bigger.
a larger line, or Bible verse,
A Bible verse?
or yeah, some kind of, because kind of what I saw happen is it was a really great idea, and I can see, especially after Sunday law, where that is going to be an issue in the writings of Sister White, but I'm looking for some place to kind of
That what is going to be an issue?
personate the personation of.
Okay.
I think what we were just.
in my sermon on the weekend, I was going to, that was my last waymark to place. Because of time, I didn't place it. But I see it as the Lord teaches the end from the beginning. And in the beginning, we had Satan tempting Eve, who represented corruption of marriage, and Satan tempting Adam, who represented compromised worship or false worship. And in the end, we see Satan doing the same thing for God's people, or indeed the world. He literally appears, then he appeared in the form of a serpent. This time he appears in the form of an angel of light, and then as a false Christ. So I saw a end from the beginning, Isaiah 46, 10, 11 play happening there. Which in Isaiah 46, 10, 11, we see, Christ teaches, I'm the first, he says, he teaches the end from the beginning, and that he will call a ravenous bird from the east, a man who will do his bidding or his will, paraphrasing, and he will determine what will happen, and he will see that it's done, essentially. So that I see that being the end from the beginning is one reason why it fits that.
Okay. I'm not certain that this will answer your question, but I'll give you my best shot, and then you can tell me what's wrong about it. Not that you're saying anything's wrong. Long before, one of the first things that I think probably the first time I got drawn into a doctrinal argument was at the church that we'd been at for the first 19 years, and early on there was a sister there that had been an Adventist long before I became into Adventism, and she'd written a booklet claiming that the thing that Adventists need to see is when Satan personates Christ, and then they'll get ready for the Sunday law. And I don't know why I thought that was wrong. I don't know what led me to disagree with her. But so long before, in the 1980s, I had did some studies for my own that I realized that if this is the Sunday law, based upon the Bible and the spirit of prophecy, this is where Satan personates Christ, not before. Okay, so if you want a Bible reference to back up that part of the claim is personate, whatever word that is, whatever variable you can get, you run it in the spirit of prophecy, and you're going to find that every time she speaks about Satan personating Christ, if there's 20 times, then maybe 15 of them, not all of them, but maybe 15 of them, she'll mention that when he's personating Christ, he's going to be pushing for a Sunday law. But when you see that, every single time that she says Satan is personating Christ and pushing for Sunday laws, it's always in the nations. Never one time does she say that Satan's personating Christ, pushing for the United States to pass a Sunday law. Okay, and that's in agreement with the statements where she talks about the threefold union. The United States will stretch its hand across the gulf and across the abyss, the threefold union. And then she has a statement at the end of a paragraph. She says, then the time has come for the marvelous working of Satan. If you type for the marvelous working of Satan, you'll pull up this threefold union, which she clearly marks as Sunday law in the United States. And then the personation of Christ takes place by Satan. Then if you run on that thought, if you consider the ensign being lifted up at the Sunday law, which you can establish that on its own merits, and when you consider what the ensign is in connection with Christ saying, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men unto myself, that you know that when Christ was lifted up at the cross, there was a counterfeit, Barabbas. Okay, so if you run Barabbas, you're going to see Sister White identifying the dragon power, either Satan specifically, but you can even see where she's saying the 10 kings are Barabbas, which is another manifestation of the dragon power. So in this history, when the ensign's lifted up at the Sunday law, this is where Satan, in this history, is personating Christ. Okay? So him coming as an angel of light, it's a little bit more vague in the sense that she says that some men are going to come as angel of lights and demons are going to come as angel of light, but disregarding that, She says Satan is going to come as an angel of light, and I'm arguing that that is a distinction between him appearing to personate Christ, all right? So what I'm saying is this, the logic for making a distinction between him being an angel of light and him personating Christ is that if this is the line of the priest, and this is the line of the Levites, that they're all, and the 11th hour workers, God's dealing with men is ever the same. So in the line of the priest, you have 9/11, midnight cry as the primary waymarks, right? But for the Levites, what do you have? What's this waymark? Okay. Midnight cry, Sunday law, close of probation. And for the 11th hour workers, you have midnight cry, Sunday law, okay, so the more I look at these things, the more each of these things have the identical characteristics. Okay? So at the Sunday law, you have a threefold union between the dragon, beast, and false prophet. And at the midnight cry, Sister White speaks about a union that comes together between Protestant Catholicism and worldlings in early writings. We mentioned that. Some of the notes we've handed out over the past week has that reference in it. You probably have it in your hand. So I'm saying there's a threefold union right here. And that there is a threefold union right here. That's a threefold union. Okay? So that's just one example of the parallels that are going on in here for each of these three classes. So for Satan to personate Christ here, in this history, the personation is, I'm understanding, is when he appears as an angel of light. Okay? And when she talks about him, Satan being an angel of light, she also identifies he's going to be a physician, okay, doing miracles and healings. And that makes me think that right in here from the midnight cry to the Sunday law, this is the climax of the Omega apostasy in Adventism, where they go into the cities and do a wonderful work. The Sabbath is lightly esteemed because back here they've thrown out the Sabbath one way or another, the Adventist church. And so, pardon me?
The Alpha started with a physician as well.
They what?
The Alpha started with a physician as well.
Alpha.
The Alpha.
Yeah, there you go. The Alpha started with a physician, John Harvey Kellogg. So there's also going to be a threefold union at midnight. And we don't see Sister White expressly identifying that, but we get it from Christ, don't we? Christ at midnight, you have a threefold union. And what's the threefold union there? The Sanhedrin is who?
Church.
The beast. Who's the Roman authorities? The dragon. Where's the false prophet? Judas. So you got a threefold union in here, the worldlings, Catholicism, and Protestantism, and then the beast dragon and the false prophet here. The logic, all I'm trying to show you here briefly is the logic is if there's a personation of Christ by Satan here, that I'm understanding the angel of light, Satan coming as an angel of light, is here. And if that's true, and you're going to find a hook to hang your doubts on, I think you'll find your hook with her expressing that some demons or human beings are also going to appear as an angel of light, and you would be unwilling to make a distinction. Okay, but But there are places where she's definitely identifying Satan appearing as an angel of light. Is that answering your thought? Go ahead.
So, yes, that answers my question. I wanted to go a little bit farther, and I was just wondering if it was going to fit or not. And so, seeing the threefold union there, what I found was in early writings, when she's talking about the wrapping, 5 years later, she writes a continuation of that view, and she highlights the fact that it's gotten way farther than anybody had thought, because before it was specific to one area and it was called the wrapping of that area. And she talks about the fact that there will be a time that nothing done, like in Christianity, will be done without mesmerism, and that mesmerism will be what people call the spirit of God for almost everything. Like, so if anything happens, it's going to be done through satanic power, but everybody's going to assume that it's done through godly power, and if you don't do it that way, they're going to think that you're not doing it through God. Then she talks about our dead relatives showing up, or dead people showing up, and then she speaks about Satan on the train and how he was the stately person and everybody was following him to perdition. And so I was placing that in that same place, so him coming as an angel of light being the time where he is the stately conductor or engineer, where she doesn't even recognize him when she sees him. She doesn't recognize him as Jesus, so he doesn't see the impersonating Christ, but she sees him as being really ennobled, where when she talks about seeing him as he is, she recognizes him, and he's not stately. Well, he looks kingly, she said, but he, you know, his physical appearance is not very good. Where when she sees this engineer, everybody's following him, everybody's respectful of him. She doesn't even recognize him herself. So I think it makes sense, but I just wanted to check.
So you think what makes sense?
That between Midnight and Midnight Cry, like you said, there's a threefold union, and I found one similar when he got arrested. There's three groups of people that the Bible mentions that at that time would be between 9/11 to midnight would be the time where spiritualism is recognized as Christianity so closely that anything done by the Spirit of God is really done through the Spirit of Satan, but nobody can see the difference of it. And then people who come back from the dead, like in a great sense, happens between midnight and midnight.
Okay.
In this paragraph, Satan's last deception, Sister White points out that Satan sees that he's about to lose his case. He cannot sweep in the whole world. He makes one more last desperate effort to overcome the faithful by deception. Mm-hmm. He does this in impersonating Christ. He clothes himself with the garment of royal, which had been accurately described in the vision of John. He has power to do this. He will appear to his deluded followers, the Christian world, who receive not the love of the truth, but pleasure in unrighteousness, transgression of the law, as Christ coming the second time.
And the point is, you just putting it in the record, or are you making a point?
Oh, I just like what you were saying, the priests, they have to go through that process before the Sunday law, because we know they're binding office before that time. And it says right here that this is to overcome the faithful by deception.
Yeah, and but that's in here.
Right, that's in there too.
Because she says the Christian world in your statement. This is where his last efforts for the faithful in the Christian world.
Yeah.
And you're saying it's because these are three parallel histories, there's got to be some manifestation of it back here and then again here.
Yes.
Yeah, that's.
Because I'm sorry.
So you guys are both agreeing.
I think so.
Yeah.
Because in this paragraph, or in this letter right here, she talks about the fact that Satan is answering to the prayers of the not the faithful, but God's people that have been praying for the latter rain, but they have not received the truth. And now here appears Satan, and he's appearing because of their prayers. So there's a request for like the latter rain prayer going on in there too.
Okay, what did you say about mesmerism?
That.
You have a quote for that, or were you just talking? summarizing the thought.
I can summarize the thought. that-
Okay, if you have a quote for that, I'm not arguing it. What I would throw in the mix is that's what the spiritual formation is.
That's what I was
Okay, so the church here is put that in place. We accept this premise. So when they get in here to this, this is strong delusion
Yes.
on the priests, the Levites, then the 11th hour workers.
So one thing I'm seeing about that strong delusion is when she talks about people from the dead coming back. She talks about loved ones, but she also talks about people who are famous, who were working under Satan to begin with, and now are shown to be in heaven. But they come back and they tell people that the Sabbath has changed. That's what they're coming back to tell people.
When did they do that?
That's what I'm trying to place between midnight and midnight cry.
I would say midnight.
Okay,
Midnight Cry Sunday, Image of the Beast.
I would think if there's going to be dead people come back from midnight to the midnight cry, it's probably James and Ellen White
Okay.
and Andrews and Loughborough. Okay, Seventh-day Adventists. Over here, when the same thing's happening on, it's probably George Washington and people are,
Different people.
people in history that's affecting the world.
I
The
read-
world isn't going to know who James White
No.
is.
I read that it actually some of the apostles were going to be
Yes.
raised back.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're the one who did
I'd
the
say in this
testimony.
history you should expect that, but in this little history, wouldn't it be
That's
Ellen White reappearing?
Not loved ones and people who we would know.
Oh, so what's the point here? What are we getting at?
I just wanted to make sure that what I was thinking was making sense and it was following with the logic of how we got to the other two portions, because I think they are connected.
I do too.
Okay, so based on one thing that you said, Daniel and I were looking at something. Close of probation happens, and then the plagues happen. But it's not until a couple plagues in where the death decree happens. So we're trying to figure out what the death decree and the close of probation were connected with. And one thing that you said as far as the angel of light, that he's pushing on the nations for the Sunday law, that was kind of the really quick conclusion we came to, that the close of probation is the Sunday law for the nations.
The Universal Sunday Law.
The universal
Yeah,
Sunday law?
that's in the record.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
So if you type in when this becomes universal,
Okay.
when this law becomes, if you type in universal, how's it go? I probably have it right here in this note. When this law becomes universal, then Christ will stand to shake terribly the earth, something along that line. But let me pull out a quote here and get away. You had your hand up, Brother Igor.
Yeah, I'm still thinking how to answer two questions, but it's bothering me a little bit.
What's bothering you?
Not bothering, I try to, because it's there, I can see, but I cannot solve it. In my mind, that we have threefold unions everywhere, because you can mark at close of probation and the second coming, so you need to mark at 9/11 as well. Do you understand what I say?
No?
Well, you have Sunday law paralleling close of probation, so you have a threefold union over there,
Over here?
down there,
Here.
right? A threefold union, right?
Okay, what's the threefold union now?
I'm not even there yet. I mean, I'm not thinking that yet. I'm thinking something else. So you have a threefold union at midnight, right? At the in the Levite line, right? Because of the priests.
Yep.
So you have a threefold union at 9/11 as well.
What's
So-
that?
Yeah,
That's what he's wondering.
that's my point. I mean, so what I think the difference will be.
Well,
How we
you
do
know
it.
what the threefold union is here, right? We already know that. We deal with that all the time. When Ezra's coming out of Babylon, he's got that. He's got that decree in his hand, and
Sambalat, those three enemies.
oh, you're looking for three enemies. I'm just saying that the beast, dragon, and false prophet, we understand, are already to implement a Sunday law here. There's some kind of union that's taking place in advance of this, behind the scenes, so to speak. But go ahead.
Okay, but
You're looking for a biblical
different-
illustration?
Yeah, well, for difference, so we can like clearly see the difference. And I was wondering if it will be the quality of each union, or and also, I mean, maybe the quality, but definitely the amount, or because it's progressive. So That's what I'm wondering. I mean, it's progressive. So what's the difference between a threefold? How can a threefold union be progressive? And what's the difference from this to the Levites? Because if it's everywhere, it doesn't help us.
Without a distinction, you're saying if it... Yeah, I don't know what the distinction is, but that's... I see a distinction. Here, that's why I say this is the beast, dragon, and false prophet. But back here she talks about Catholicism, Protestantism, and worldlings. It seems like it's a lesser, the beast, dragon, and false prophet is a more perfect fulfillment of it all. And that's illustrated in here too. And you're wanting to know...
So this help us distinguish. I mean, when we are at 9/11 and if we know that will be a threefold union, will help us if we can see those. I mean, how can
I don't know about how that would help us. What this helps me with here is that it's showing that at midnight there's a threefold union between, well, let me do it this way, maybe. Is this the image of the beast test? Image of the beast test, IBT, for the USA. And this is the image of the beast test for the world. Okay, so there's a distinction between world and the USA.
Yeah.
But when the Adventists go to the government of the United States and say that you need to deal with these heretics in your midst because you're losing tax money off of them, and they're trying to work some kind of secret society, is that an image of the beast?
Yeah.
So there's a lesser image of the beast here that's probably, you recognize it within the Adventist church, here within the United States, here within the world.
I see. When we were having the School of Prophecy in Brazil, and the school and the church was trying to say to us, you should not go. For me, that was the image of the beast test, because I mean the church was using a power that she doesn't have, and if I allow that, there will be an image of the beast.
Yeah, well, when you get it down to the really experiential level, individual level, I guess is the way to say it. My argument has been for years is that if I force my wife to go to church on Sabbath when she doesn't really want to, then that's secular power, human power used to enforce religious dogma. Okay, that is, I can have the image of the beast formed in me through that kind of exercise. So what you're saying about down there, the classic one where it clicked on for me was years and years and years ago. We had meetings set up in some obscure city in Ecuador, okay? And when we got there, the meeting place that had been rented and set up had been shut down by the Ecuadorian authorities because the Adventist church back in Quito or whatever is the capital of Ecuador, Quito, they'd went to the government and say, hey, you got a bunch of heretics who are going to have a meeting over there in this town. And so they had the police shut the place down. We drove all the way over there and they wouldn't allow us in the building. So that was the Adventist church going to the secular government to shut down a meeting. That was even more of an illustration. But I agree that if the Adventist church is just doing it by threat, that spirit is there.
So what's the difference between this event that happened in Quito and whatever is going to happen between midnight and midnight cry will be spread everywhere because it's the same, isn't it? I mean, you say that
It already happened.
It's a biting off. It's like we have 3 biting offs there. So in the Levites, the midnight's not there biting off. So I don't think we have to see a kind of threefold unions for them. Their threefold unions that they have to go against it is in their biting off. So we don't need to see a biting off in midnight to midnight cry in the Levites' time, because their biting off is going to be at midnight cry to Sunday morning.
I didn't understand.
The biting off of the Levites is not from midnight to midnight cry, so we are not going to find a threefold unions for them.
For them.
For them.
There will be a threefold union in there, but it's not part of their
history
problem.
experience, exactly. So we don't exactly have to see some threefold union 9/11 because it's not our binding out. The threefold union is at the binding out, at least what we see.
No, but about but the image of the beast that happened. So that's what's the difference between the image of the beast that will happen between midnight and midnight cry, which will be the church using the state to persecute us, and what happened in Kilo. Is just the increase, or is the quality? Like because between midnight cry and Sunday law will be the quality as well, isn't it? Right. Because
Yeah, this is the Adventist church seeking the strength of secular government. This is the so-called Protestant church in the United States seeking the government of the United States. And this is the Protestant world.
yeah. So between 9/11 and midnight.
What we've seen of Ecuador is a, I mean, I don't know.
It's
know
just
the country,
it's just
but it's just a sign for what will be worldwide within Adventism.
Between midnight and
Between
midnight.
midnight and midnight, or worldwide, I
But,
mean
okay.
Adventism.
Well, what is now?
what is it now?
Yeah.
Well, I see your hand, Michelle, but we're all forming the character either for the mark of the beast or the seal of God, right?
Yeah.
So before we hit the Sunday law, you and I will have a character prepared one way or another. And I think a characteristic of that character is when you use secular power to accomplish your will. So we're seeing an escalation of this activity, if that's the right way to say it, the image of the beast activity, as the Holy Spirit's being withdrawn from man, and mankind is all either going in that direction or this direction. So I'm at the basic level, I'm just seeing a progression. I'm not sure that I'm understanding what you're wanting to point out.
I was just wondering because if it's different between midnight and midnight cry and also it's different between midnight cry and Sunday law. How would it be in 9/11 and midnight?
Okay, so, yeah,
Can you rephrase that question, Brother Jeff, please?
rephrase his question?
Yes, please.
I'm not understanding, I'm not so sure that I agree with his question.
I don't
Okay, and
think
here's what I mean. He's saying we see a threefold union here, a threefold union here, a threefold union here, and because this is midnight, right? Yes? So when we take this and put it in the priest, there's a threefold union here, right? This is midnight, threefold union. So therefore, there should be a threefold union here. Okay, that's what he's saying.
Right.
And these threefold unions, to me, are a different manifestation than back here, even though you can pretty much see some kind of threefold union here. I guess the difference, the first basic difference, is probation is still open here.
Can we use the line of Mordecai to show that there's a threefold union 9/11, where they are trying to cast lots to find out the day for the death decree?
Who are they?
Haman,
Haman?
his counselors, and then the kings that had to agree to.
Perhaps. What does that gain for us?
It just shows that there is some sort of getting going on 9/11 that we're not even aware of.
I don't think that's what he's trying to conceptualize. But Sister Michelle.
One of the things I'm getting from Igor's question is, what are these different events that are happening? Are they the image of the beast test on a greater scale? And I think there's a point that you made that I just want to emphasize, like individually or in different places or in different situations there are, but it's not consistently every single meeting that you put on is there police there.
Right.
It's just at sometimes something's happen. For myself, I believe that the image of the beast test happened years and years and years ago when a minister in the Seventh-day Adventist Church told people that they needed to vote on Prop 8. I thought that was the church asking the state to enforce their dogmas, and as Seventh-day Adventists, we know we're not supposed to do that. Therefore, we were failing the image of the beast test. And so again, I think that's similar to what Igor's looking at. This is an isolated situation. It didn't happen for all of Adventism. It didn't happen again for every single, does that make sense? Like, law that passed, it was an individual type of situation between 9/11 and now. And so you'll have these little tests because they're individual tests for individual people. We know that from 9/11 to Midnight Cry, the leadership, right, is part of this judgment, and they are closing their probation. They are putting themselves into that, to miss the second test, miss the first test, some of them. And so I think a lot of these things are just fulfillment of that, because when I was looking specifically at Jesus going through this experience of going to the different courts, especially with Pilate, and we were talking about all of these people closing their probation, they had opportunities to change their mind, but it would have gone against everything that they have been going for up until then. And so I see some of these small or individual events as exactly that. They're small individual events because specific people are closing their probation or making decisions that should be showing them what's going to be happening in the future on a greater scale. When all of Adventism, let's say at general conference level, says we are not going to deal with this anymore. This is how we're going to handle it.
Okay, I see your finger, Brother Igor. I would say that this being midnight, and this being midnight, that you can say that this is a crisis. And the crisis is when you're face to face with death. That's how Sister White expresses it. What Michelle is evidently referring to is that we're going to be tested on this very principle as we approach this, and we're going to have to choose right or wrong. If we're choosing wrong, when we hit the crisis here, we're going to manifest a character that bows down to the image of the beast and receives the mark of the beast. So yeah, there's manifestations of the image of the beast going on in the church, outside that church, inside our own personal life. But we're approaching midnight where the crisis is, we're going to manifest how we've navigated that testing process.
I think with all these contributions, and I remember a sermon that Tyler did and I watched, is about your prayer, prevailing prayer. So the yearly events in the sanctuary, that in the 10th day of the 7th month, to cross that day in peace with God, you need to daily face and experience. So every night you need to pray and go through Jacob's anguish and go to sleep. And then when you reach the 10th day of the Day of Atonement, you'll be fine. So I think with that in place, I can now see it better, because I see that there's a main event, but daily you have small steps.
I have a quote on a different subject that ties in with that in a second, perhaps, if we get there.
On a different level, you can see that the same type of escalation or relationship occurring in different lines with the spirit of Antichrist and the literal Antichrist, which until Satan appears as an angel of light, will be represented by Satan's representative on earth, the papacy and the Pope manifesting that leadership position. But the spirit of Antichrist is he that denies that Christ is come in the flesh. And so what you're seeing is Satan appearing as an angel of light and people accepting that he's heavenly and doing all these miracles and wonders, and that's of God when it's of Satan. And then when you get the perfect manifestation is when Christ is personated by Satan. But before those happen, individuals in their own lives, organisations, can exhibit that spirit of Antichrist, which through their conduct and behaviour and desire to control others, they're denying the very things that Christ told them that they should do, and therefore they're exhibiting that spirit of Antichrist.
Yeah,
Same thing.
the world is being bound off from midnight to the close of probation. The world's being bound off, and You're going to manifest at midnight where you're at. Okay, from Fundamentals of Christian Education, you don't have this with you that I know of. Page 335. It says, "But there is a day that God hath appointed for the close of this world's history. This gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come." Prophecy is fast fulfilling. Much more should be said about these tremendously important subjects. The day is at hand when the destiny of every soul will be fixed forever. What day is that?
Depending which group of people we're dealing with.
Yeah, it's midnight. It's midnight. The day is at hand where the destiny of every soul will be fixed forever. And that's not my point, but I know that we understand this. This day of the Lord hastens on apace. The false watchmen are raising the cry, all is well, but the day of God is rapidly approaching. So, as we're coming to the day of the Lord for the priest, the false priests are saying all is well, right? But the day of God is rapidly approaching. Its footsteps are so muffled that it does not arouse the world from the death-like slumber into which it has fallen. While the watchmen cry, peace and safety, where are they crying peace and safety? The watchmen.
9/11 to midnight. 9/11 is supposed to be loud.
Okay.
Other voice.
Both. Okay, both. Let's say both, all right? And the reason I say let's say both is we've already grappled over and over again with the fact that the characteristics of here are also in midnight. Okay, but here I'm wanting to put it at midnight to make a point. Don't jump ahead, all right? It says, while the watchmen cry peace and safety, sudden destruction cometh upon them. She's pulling these quotes from different passages. And they shall not escape. For as a snare it shall come upon all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. It overtakes the pleasure lover and the sinful man as the thief in the night. When all is apparently secure and men retire to contented rest, then the prowling, stealthy, midnight thief steals upon his prey. Okay, so in this midnight time period, there's going to be a peace and safety message about what's happening. What's going to happen? Sudden destruction. Okay, this is upholding the crippling that goes on right here, is it not? And this is their cry. This is the counterfeit midnight cry. And there's some this history here, this is the third abomination, but it's the fourth abomination in Ezekiel 8 too, isn't it? Weeping for Tammuz and bowing down to the sun. They're right here at midnight, aren't they? I mean, they bow down to the sun right here at the midnight cry because they're going to participate in the Sunday law, but the 3 and the 4 have this connection prophetically. Let me see if I just wanted to put this in the record, that in this history here, she's saying sudden destruction's coming when the peace and safety message is going on. I think there's going to be a peace and safety message in here too, because why? Because there's going to be an angel of light leading out in a wonderful work in the cities. And what's happening in the cities? They're being destroyed, but at the same time, there's an angel of light manifesting him. But what's coming here? Sudden destruction.
Because the Sabbath is lightly regarded by Adventists as a time period.
Yeah, right here it's likely that they're going to participate in this Sunday legislation. I mean, there's more and more lines to that. Now, let me put one more thing in place in advance of tomorrow. What I said last week, I want to go back to briefly. And if this is the midnight cry and the Sunday law, Anyone think about what we did on Moses' line?
The plague?
Yeah, the plagues. I said the first,
3 and 4.
pardon me?
You divide them 3, 3 and 4.
3, 3, and 4. But the first thing was the rods being thrown down. And I'm saying that's a sign because I'm saying 9/11 is a sign.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you have the waters turned to blood, and that lasted 7 days. That's the first thing. Then you have the frogs. What are the frogs?
Spirit.
The Spirit revelation.
Sister White says it's publications.
Oh, publication.
Okay. She says that these publications are spreading like frogs across the land. If you type in frogs and publications, you'll see it. So to me, this is an argument between one message and another, which is consistent with what we've already put in place.
What about the 3 spirits that came out of the mouth? The dragon, the beast, and the false
Yeah.
prophet. They were like frogs, right? Or they use a sheep.
Yeah.
Using it's another word, but it's not frog.
Yeah. No, that's Revelation 16.
16,
Yeah.
16, 13, 14.
So what is your point? When do they come out?
That's during the plague.
No.
Sorry.
No. Well, that's yes, they're right there in the plagues. They're right there in the plagues. But there's a warning in there.
Right.
Okay, that there's no you don't need a warning if your probation's already closed. So it's implying that you need to understand the message of the threefold union before the 7 last plagues arrives. So they're going forth as frogs unto who? They come out of the mouth of the beast, the dragon, and false prophet, and then they go forth to the kings of the earth to gather the whole world to the battle of Armageddon. So they have to come out, go to the kings, and then gather them to Armageddon. When do they come out? What is the spirit of the beast, the dragon, and false prophet that comes out of their mouth that leads to Armageddon? What comes out of your mouth?
Messages.
Speaking.
Something that you
Speaking. That's what I'm saying. Frogs are publications.
Yeah, messages.
Okay, it's a law in that context. But I'm saying back here in this history, we've already established that there's a shaking that goes on over this message, within this message. And publications can be DVDs on the website or this DVD on the website. Okay, the argument's being placed by things that are being published. And the DVDs that are being published now have been typified by the books that were published in the time of Sister White, when she was talking about publications. But when you get to here, what do you have? You have the finger of God. Are we satisfied that when the priests say we can't duplicate the lice here, that this is the very finger of God? Can we place this at midnight? Or do we believe the finger of God is marked at midnight based upon Belshazzar, the writing in the dust with Mary, and the 10 Commandments? The first touch, what?
Daniel 10.
Oh, the first touch in Daniel?
I just want to point something out. In the Bible, in the first 4 miracles, Aaron's rod is involved. So he's the one who's doing all the miracles, from throwing the rod and turning into a snake, and in the first 3 plagues, Aaron is involved. But after that, Aaron is no longer mentioned until a little bit later on. Then both of them are involved. But in the spirit of prophecy is different. But in the Bible, specifically points out that Aaron is involved in those 4.
Okay, but let's deal with Daniel's claim
I'm
there.
just saying he represents a priest. So I was just wondering if that would have a significance in the line of the priest.
No doubt.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it is. What'd you say, Daniel? What'd you say? You made an argument here.
I just said that is the first touch.
So I'm saying between midnight and the midnight cry is always the third, right? But you're saying the finger of God, which is midnight, is the first touch?
Yeah, just make this connection. I don't know.
Oh.
Of the 3 touches,
Also,
Daniel
we
10.
Because the 3 touches would be the 4th plague, the 5th plague, and the 6th plague. If those 3 touches began there at the 3rd.
I think there are different touches. This touch is a touch of destruction.
Oh yeah, this is totally, you have to relate to this internal, external.
And why I'm saying this is because I see 9/11 as a touch of God.
Oh, you see, here we go again. You see 9/11 as the touch,
Yeah.
but you can't see a touch here.
I can see also.
Okay.
I can see it both ways.
So, but you think primarily the first touch in Daniel 10 is 9/11? Or secondary?
Well, from Testimonies 9,
Yeah, because she said a touch of God's hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's
she
touch
does
of
say
God's
that.
hand. And that's my answer to Tower number 7 and all that.
To what number 7?
There's this conspiracy theories that people say about 9/11. Well, doesn't matter. That's the touch of God.
Oh yeah, yeah. But you're not saying that that's Daniel being slain at 9/11.
No.
Okay.
I'm saying about I'm using that to add in the discussion of the plagues. That
Okay.
when they say, "Well, this is the touch of God," you're marking there, but I see a touch of God in the destruction way in 9/11.
So for that it would be first touch, second touch, third touch?
No,
Destruction, destruction, destruction?
where do you have 3 touches of destruction?
This is your story.
No, I'm
Yes, I think
You have 3. If you're going to tie it in with Daniel 10,
I did it.
No, he's dissociating it.
He's
I'm saying that they
there's
are not.
another touch.
That's my first.
Different kind of touching. He
There's
said.
another touch.
There's one in the binding off, which is
Okay, so-
touching.
all right. I won't pick on you.
No, I'm saying what I'm saying is, well, why you're tying them together?
These?
The 3 touches of Daniel.
No, I'm just saying in this history forget the 3 touches if that's confusing the issue. I was playing off of what he was saying.
Okay.
In this history, I'm saying based upon we already acknowledging that 3 and 4 are together, that we can see the finger of God as the 3rd plague, but we can put the 4th, 5th, and 6th plague in this history, bringing us to the midnight cry.
Which is the number 6.
Pardon me?
Which is the number 6, midnight cry.
Which is the number 6, midnight cry. And then when you get to the 7th plague, and I have since looked at the Hebrew at a shallow level, Brother Theodore, when it says, I will pour all the plagues out upon you now in the 7th plague, it means all the plagues. So the 7th plague is all the plagues coming down, and I'm saying that there are 4 more in here, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And which gives you a number 4 here, and a number 4 here. 4 plagues in this binding off, 4 plagues in this binding off. And that this 10th plague being Passover is easily the Sunday law. Right?
Yeah.
And so I went there to deal with the 4, to connect the second witness with the 4 sore judgments of Jerusalem. Okay, so I'm arguing now, where are the 3 anointings of David? The
First one is 89.
1989. Where's the next one? No, not 9/11. Where's the next anointing of David? It's at Hebron. Where's the next one? Pardon me?
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. I'm arguing that midnight cry is Jerusalem. Somebody give me a second witness for that.
Ezra arrives in Jerusalem.
Ezra arrives in Jerusalem on the first day of the 5th month.
Jesus arrives in Jerusalem.
Jesus arrives in Jerusalem. There's a third witness. So the point being is in Ezekiel 14, these are the 4 sore judgments on Jerusalem. So I'm saying right here is Jerusalem. So if you go into Zechariah chapter 1, it says the Lord will yet choose Jerusalem. When does the Lord choose Jerusalem? At midnight cry. And after he chooses Jerusalem in Zechariah chapter 1, what does he see? 4 horns. They come to do what? To scatter Judah, Jerusalem, and Israel. Right here, 4 horns. Third witness to this. And then there's 4 carpenters that come to straighten everything out. So what I'm saying is this seems to be getting pretty, got a lot of witnesses on this now. That I don't know necessarily what that means in terms of Joseph, and that's where we wanted to start it. So we had a structure to see where the prophets are when they're interacting with the kings. Daniel, Bud, and Tanya.
No, just make the point because in Midnight Righteous and the Law you have the 7 times, so it's the 7 plagues.
7 plagues.
Sorry. And in the 7 plagues, or in the 7 times, we have the 4 7 times, which be 4 plagues in the 7 times. Just make this point.
Okay. Brother Bud?
I just remember that at the last camp meeting, you used Genesis 15 to put the 4 where they, he separated the 3 animals and the 2 birds to put 4 and 4 on each side.
Yeah, that too. For number 4s.
Of the midnight cry.
Yep.
So for the internal work and the external work during the Moses time, we see that the first 3 plagues were also affected on the Hebrews too. The last 7 were not. But after the 9th plague, or would be the 6th plague, we see a death decree towards Moses by Pharaoh. What do we do with that? How do we...
I don't know what we do with that. But, okay, Michael, you know what to do with it.
No, I don't do it.
All right, what are you going to say?
I was going to go back to the thought, just because I had this thought and I didn't say it when you were talking about it, but with the angel of light, I was looking at John chapter 5, and I'm understanding that that angel that comes down to trouble the waters is a symbol of this work of Satan and him troubling or exciting the people of the world. And this is the false latter rain message that you're going to be magically healed, and there's this false healing. And at the same time, Christ comes to those who are deceived.
So you're saying that the troubling of the water of this angel happens at midnight.
Yeah, I'm thinking that.
That's the same place others put it, but they're not saying that this is a satanic angel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And what's going on here in terms of the parable of the 10 virgins?
There's 2 glasses being...
No, the call.
Awake.
No, they're separated
Yeah.
Yeah.
into 5 and 5.
Yeah.
How many porches are there in that story?
10.
Porches?
5.
Oh, there's 5, sir.
Yeah.
5.
So you got the 5 marked there too.
Yeah.
All right, raise your hands higher again, because my brother.
I think that I'm just wondering, Satan appears like an angel. I think that it can be in midnight because after the desert, Jesus,
The desert.
the desert, Satan appeared like angel of light, and we know that we mark this in the binding of. And also when Ellen White saw the train, which the conductor was Satan, talking about the third angel's message and the strong delusion and other things. And we know that the binding of is for the priest is between midnight and midnight cry. And in this moment, Satan was the conductor of the train like angel of light.
Okay, but if he comes as an angel of light here between midnight and the Sunday law, and he's doing this wonderful work in the cities, and he comes and impersonates Christ here in the world setting, when he comes in here, what is it? Who's being impacted? Is it the world, the United States? It's the Adventist Church.
This is the point I wanted to get to.
I'm not denying. I think we're on the same page, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The point I wanted to get to is that a sister called from Alabama yesterday and kind of confirmed the thought that was in my mind. But she's seeing this impotent man as a symbol not of the priests but of the Levites. And so this man's deceived by this false flattering message. He's steeped in these false ideas, but he wants to be healed, and Christ would be the representation of his people. So he's the priest who comes to them and says, no, that's not going to happen. That's just man's superstition. And he says, do you want to be healed? Get up and walk. That's Christ symbolizing the priest giving the message to the Levites who are affected by this.
And when they get up and walk, what does the healed man got to do?
Go back to the church.
He got to go to the Adventists in here
Yeah.
and,
yourself to the
and
priest.
tell them the truth.
Yeah.
Okay, so one other thought in the last 2 minutes. Where's Brother Tyler? He's the one that spent the time on this that I was going to bring up. But if Jerusalem, not if, Jerusalem is established here. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so the foundation, the foundational work is taking place in here. They build the foundation first. Then they got to build the temple. Where's the temple? The temple is finished by the decree of Darius. In the history of the second step, the temple is finished. If Jerusalem's finished here, what's going on from Midnight Cry to the Sunday Law in terms of Jerusalem? Who's the symbol of that work? And if Tyler was here, he should know. Who comes back and takes a Nehemiah? He takes a 3-day circuit around Jerusalem at night. And how many days once he comes back and gives his rousing altar call? How many days until they finish the street and wall?
52.
49 more. He's got 3 days. And where's the 49 take you to?
Sun, 50.
Takes you right here to 50, to the Sunday Law. So in here, Nehemiah is doing the work of finishing the streets and walls in how many weeks? 7. 49 days. So where are his 3-day midnight circuit? Midnight cry. So who is he? Is he a priest or a Levite? Is he a priest?
Yeah, because he has to do the circle, and then he's the one who tells everybody else.
Why does he have to do the circle?
No, he'd be a Levite.
He'd have to be a Levite.
Midnight to midnight, and it ends up in Sunday.
Yeah, this here,
Time of preparation.
this is what the preparation for the Levites to do the work here. They gotta look at this history here, these 3 steps, these 3 days,
They're hidden.
and come to understand what's going on in order to do the work.
Nehemiah was hidden for,
Nehemiah was hidden.
like we are hidden from 9/11.
We're hidden from here to here, and the Levites are hidden from here to here in these 3 days. Does that fit? Too bad Tyler wasn't here because he did spend some time digging this out. But anyway, sorry that we didn't have a real battle plan for this morning. My brother Daniel.
I was just like to introduce, because I remember when you were asking about what should we go on, and I remember once you told about we back to the reform lines and try to combine the message. I don't know, just make this idea. How about we do this in the next days?
Go back to the reform lines.
And try to combine the message. That's what you said.
Yeah, but what are you suggesting we do?
For the
For the duration of the school over the next few weeks, do what?
no,
Go back to the basic reform lines or back to the reform line of Ezra, or what are you saying? I'm not arguing with you, I'm trying to understand
yeah,
what
to
you
the basic
For example, we went back to Genesis 40 because now we have the midnight. A lot of reform lines doesn't have the midnight reform lines. A lot of
Go back
Yeah,
to older
and
lines to look for the binding off there.
Okay, one thing I want to do, and I don't mind doing that, is I want to finalize this thought about this being the end of Abram's prophecy, if we were going to say it this way. This is the line of Moses. I want to see how the line of Joseph squares up with this. And I would argue that if Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar in Daniel 4 and 5, and you can go back and look at the presentations that I did, I never argued that that was exclusively the everlasting gospel. I've always understood it could be more than one thing, so I'm not denying that. But if that's valid, if Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar, the first and last king of Babylon, can be understood to typify the wise and foolish virgins, then both those pharaohs should be able to. The good Pharaoh in Joseph, bad Pharaoh in Moses. So be an illustration of 2 classes of worshipers that get separated at some point in time. So I want to put that in the mix, but does everyone want to go back and try to bind off this trimester by taking what we've been dealing with up on the basic original reform lines and that didn't, hey, in reality, the beginning reform lines, they had the midnight cry in there, but not like we have it. They didn't see the emphasis of the midnight cry as a waymark. So we have more than midnight and the midnight cry to grapple with now as we go back, because we know more about the midnight cry now than we did way back then. Is that what everyone wants to do?
That'd be good, that'd be bright.
I think it would be good.
What about the Brazilians?
Looks good.
Okay. What about Brother Stephen?
I'm interested in what you want to bring up, Sergeant Joseph.
Yeah, okay, I'll exercise some kingly power there, and we'll put that in place too, to satisfy Stephen and me.
Yeah, I thought we were gonna do both.
Okay, yeah, we have time. You want to have a closing prayer for us, my brother?
Heavenly Father, just give thanks for waking us up this morning and to a new day. Father, just ask that you bless this day, and just thanks that you brought Jeff back safely from Virginia, and bless those who were at the camp meeting there with the message that he delivered. Just pray that in the remaining few weeks, Father, that we can be open to your leading, Father, and that new light can be brought out in the past histories of the reform lines that we've studied. Father, that if that be your will, Father, that you enable us to do that. And just ask for strength and energy to do the task this day, and your Holy Spirit be poured out upon us and forgive us our sins. Ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.